I just wanted to talk very briefly about Avowed. Avowed was a RPG in the, it's made by Obsidian, who you know did all kinds of great games in the past, like New Vegas, although the team's changed, but it is that company that does that. That came out very recently and was not met, like, in the overall zeitgeist, like, particularly well by a lot of people. It's one of those games that I always find really interesting, is that the opinion that seemed to get shared very quickly on this game was not overly positive, and therefore, like, that propagated across, like, gaming audiences is like, let's not bother with this game. However, Chris, our editor, loved it, like, played it, and he's like, I don't get what people are mad about. Like, this game is really, really good. They clearly didn't have a huge budget, so there's certain areas, if you're comparing it to, say, an Oblivion remaster or Skyrim or something like that, where they've not invested as heavily as you would maybe hope or you expect, but the things they did focus on and put their budget to, they've done way better than a lot of people. So I was like, okay, I mean, it's kind of, and the reason I didn't play it is because that's great, but there's so many, like, full guaranteed games out there at the moment that we've been doing that, like, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. It's like, yeah, I would like to play this, but we just played Skyrim. You know, Oblivion just came out. Outer Worlds 2 is on its way, which is going to be a similar sort of vibe. We've also had Expedition 33 come out, which is, like, game of the year in many people's eyes, and we're going to be playing it in the near future once people have, like, experienced it and stuff like that, so we'll be jumping in then. So it was like, it's kind of like lower on the pecking order. That was it. However, we've been doing, as you may well be aware, every Friday we've been doing a deal with GeForce Now for NVIDIA, which is black magic wizardry. It's incredible. If you have a weaker PC, this isn't me being paid for this. I am not, to be clear, I am not paid to talk about this on this channel at all. It's just legitimately amazing. So I think it's worth noting that it exists, because it's so, so good. If you have a weaker PC and you want to play some of the modern games, you're either going to pay 4K for a PC or you're going to pay 20 quid to do it on GeForce Now. You have to buy the game, but you don't if you got a shitter PC, you can play it on your goddamn phone, for Christ's sake. It's incredible, well worth looking at, and you can test it for free. I know that sounds like an ad sale, but honestly, I've been nothing but blown away by this tech and where it's come. As long as you've got a semi-decent internet connection, you don't even need a really good one. It's awesome. You can play it to, like, 4K. I've been doing it on 4K. So what we decided to do for that is, like, any of these games that are lost in the shuffle that you think actually these games are phenomenal, you should check it out. We do a vote on a Friday of what people would like to see. So we had RoboCop like a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, we're going to do RoboCop. We did Oblivion on Friday. It was the only reason we tested Oblivion. Yeah, it's amazing. So we're going to be doing RoboCop because it was phenomenal. So the vote was for Avowed. The vote was between Avowed and 2 Point Museum, which, if you know anything about my 2 Point Hospital playthrough, I lost my entire life to that for like a month. Because it's so good. So good. And I hated 2 Point Campus, which was really sad. I was so excited for 2 Point Campus, and it was terrible. But 2 Point Museum seems to have found its feet again. I think they got the wrong idea about what people liked about 2 Point Hospital, which was really sad. And 2 Point Campus was kind of down. Either way, Avowed was the choice. So I'm only going to play it for a couple of hours. That's my opinion. It's a couple of hours of play. What did I feel the vibe of the game was? And was Chris right, or is the general populace right? You know, that kind of thing with the first couple of hours of gameplay where the game should be showing its teeth a little bit. You've got to play it for 20 hours before you get a grip of the game. I'm not a fan of that. You should be getting the claws in within a couple of hours. Otherwise you're like, dude, this is a lot of time. For a lot of people, two hours of gaming without it getting anywhere is no good, right? Starfield. Anyway, what I think. First of all, the big pro was the combat. Like, really liked the combat. This actually might be off-putting, actually. I think this is where probably the disconnect came. I will say this before we get anywhere. It started very negative in my chat. Like, Avowed, that's terrible, blah, blah. By the end of it, a lot of people were like, this game actually looks really good. Yeah, it's one of those where the negatives that had seemed to be... No, I've not played it, I've not seen it, I've heard it's bad. Right? And now you see it and you're like, huh. Actually, that's kind of cool. The combat I really liked. 2 weapon loadouts that are really responsive with sort of real-time combat with block and heavy attacks to break block and stagger enemies, and then open phases, finishes, cycling very quickly between a whole number of abilities in a very... God. I wanted to say Guild Wars, but that's not accurate. New World would probably be the closest I would think of. Something like that, where you can have a setup that's like magic. I've got magic and a gun, because they're both ranged. I've got spear and shield in one. I've got two-handed in another. And you can cycle between those modes depending on what you're doing and what kind of enemies you're fighting. If you're fighting a lot of, like, arrow guys, a shield is probably really good just to block those arrows. If you're dealing with something that's kind of at range and you don't want to get melee too much, you can then throw fireballs and magic at it and set them on fire, while also using like a gun or something like that, or a crossbow, in order to attack them at range. They've got different range, different drop-offs, all those kinds of things going on. So that combat style, especially by the time I was fighting bosses, the last boss I fought, it was a large bear boss, was really cool. I was cycling between all kinds of things. You've got a very quick dodge, but it's in this like first-person style. Actually worked out really well. That was the thing that gripped me the most. The story felt very generic to get going. Is you are a child of a god. You're a god-born child. Go and save the world because there's corruption down there. All right, you know, go down some typical fantasy world, which is got all the hallmarks of typical fantasy world, and go and deal with the badness. But it has a mix of few things on there. It's like the people don't really like the Godborn. They judge you because you're physically repulsive, because you've got like coral and stuff growing out of your head. You can choose to have that on or off if you prefer the aesthetics of your character. I went full Oblivion mode on it because I like making weird characters. They make me laugh when cutscenes pop up, and that's what it's all about. I play games and having fun. I don't care how cool my character looks. I'm not bothered. So that was the story. Yeah. All right. What was important, though, and this is the bit that Chris told me about, is like you'll find out very quickly what I liked about it, is that your choices really, really matter. That I really like, because that's something that is missing in a lot of the big bloated RPGs that are out there, mentioning no names, is that you have the illusion of choice, yet there's no real payoff to those choices in a lot of cases. Sometimes there's something minor that will change, or an entirely different storyline that will play out. So you got something like the Dawn Guard in Skyrim. It's like you go one way or the other, you'll get a different storyline. Okay. In this one, very noticeable changes that happen very quickly and make some sort of logical sense. The first one that I ran into was there was a criminal in prison, and she told me where she had an escape boat docked off the island, but she told me where it was. And as I decided to play for the Empire, and the Empire is is right and true, I was like, well, you're still a criminal, so I'm not letting you out. Like, for all I know, you're like a pirate lord or something. But she was, by the way. She was. So I was like, I'm not letting you out. And she's like, really? You're going to leave me here to die? And I'm like, well, somebody will come by. You know, they'll reinforce this garrison that's been attacked. So she was like, dude, what? I'm like, yep, leaving you there. So that was the... I left her there. Lo and behold, she manages to break out because you've opened something earlier in the dungeon, and she's been able to break out, and she shows up as an ad in the boss fight. She's like, I told you, right? These guys are nuts, and now you've left me here to die, and you're fighting like the big crazy general. She joins the boss fight. And then later on, there was more choices. These choices directly happen, and NPCs that you remember. I certainly like return of... So it's not like John Business has showed up, and you're like, who? Very relevant to what we were doing, and a great opening idea to like making choices. Because I imagine if you did it the other way, she would also help you in the boss fight. And perhaps... And Chris was like, yeah, if you do X and Y, things happen differently. And because you've done this, things are going to happen differently for you now, because she was a person of merit. And now you've caused some things to happen. And I was like, that's the strength of the game. That's the strength of the game. So it is, it's got a lot of the classics like lockpicking and collecting food and potions and things, all the usual stuff you'd expect from this RPG, but that's its focus, is combat and choices that matter. That's good. That's what started to change people's mind in my chat about it. That's about as far as I'm going to say for now. You do get companions, which have special abilities that you can control in a Pokemon style. You know, they can burn reeds for you or crash through walls and things like that, open different pathways to access certain areas. So you've got that element going as well. But overall, for a couple of hours playthrough, I can see the appeal of this. Will it be something we return to? It would be if it's like a less strong phase, considering I would obviously prefer to play Expedition 33 and then probably check out Oblivion and do all those kinds of things before coming back to this. But it's not a game that I'm like, definitely not. All right, so that's the situation. All right, check out Avowed if that's something that interests you. If you've played the others and you crave that RPG choice-making system. See you later.